Good afternoon. I'm Jeremiah Sloan with VETRO, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar on the Connected Network, jointly hosted with Camvio. Today, we're going to talk about how a best-in-breed solution provides your teams the data that they need automatically, and how we can really streamline the work process in order for you to focus on serving the customer and making the most of your network. Joining me today is Don with Camvio and Joe with TriCoGo. And guys, I'm gonna let you introduce yourselves here in just a second. First, just some quick logistics. The webinar is slated to go 30 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer. And we are recording. We'll share that recording with you after the fact. During the webinar, if you have any questions, we'll try to get to them as we're going through the slides and the conversation. And if we don't, we'll absolutely follow up with you after the fact. Today is going to be fairly high level on how this best of breed solution is bringing efficiency to our partners and to our fiber network operators. If you'd like to dive deeper, absolutely schedule a follow-up call with us to explore how we can meet your needs on your network and with your teams. Okay, with that being said, Joe, please kick us off with some introductions.
My name's Joe Lightsey. I'm the operations manager here at TriCoGo. We're located in Middle Georgia, a little town called Gray, just south of Atlanta. We are a greenfield fiber to the home provider. We've been in business a little over 5 years, and we've got just over 11,000 subscribers.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. And Don, will you tell us about you and about Camvio, please?
Sure. I'm a 30-year experienced senior software engineer. I've been at Camvio just shy of 5 years. In addition to software engineering, I'm also our DevOps lead and have lately been getting involved in some data warehousing work as well. And one of the things I did recently was the integration with the latest round of VETRO integration that I wrote the software on the Camvio side for, and we now have deployed at TriCoGo with Joe.
Well, that's perfect, Don. We're going to unpack the value of that connectivity between our two systems to the audience here today. And maybe in that vein, Joe, would you please unpack for us sort of back when this all first started, what you were looking to solve for your teams when you decided to partner with Vetro and Camvio?
So when we first got started, we were looking for a billing system, and several of the first we looked at did everything. They included mapping and addressing and everything with it, which initially looked really good to us. We thought, hey, one system to do it all. The more we dove into that, we noticed things that they couldn't do very well. And once we looked at Camvio, we really liked what they could do with the subscriber, the billing, workflows that looked really good, but they didn't have anything to do with the GIS portion. And they said, hey, we partner with Vetro. So we looked at Vetro, and they did a great job with GIS, with serviceability, with things that meant truth in our network. And we decided that, you know what, instead of having one person that does okay with everything, if we did one part that everybody did really good at, another part they did really, really good at, and put those two together, that would provide us with what we were looking for. And that partnership between Vetro and Camvio, it proved to be what we needed to get us started and work.
Thanks, Joe. I want to dive a little deeper there soon, but first, Don, we were chatting last week a bit about the difference between, just a data handoff, which is sort of a very manual process where you're producing a work item that maybe is given to someone else to deal with, versus like a data flow that's truly automated. Would you tell me a bit about your opinion with your background on the differences for a guy like Joe?
So I think that the handoff metaphor to me implies essentially a relay race. So one system's working for a while and then it hands off and that system's not working anymore and somebody else is working on it. And It's sort of this you work, then I work, then you work. And with the data synchronization between Camvio and VETRO, both systems are working at the same time, and we're exchanging data at the right time when it's needed, when it's updated. And that allows each system to do what it does best and for us to sort of flow the data across so that hopefully users like Joe don't kind of understand when the flows are happening. They just sort of happen.
Yeah, so Joe, we have a visual here that sort of walks us through a workflow that's pretty common for all of our operators where we're looking to monetize the network. And Don, you were talking about allowing the best in breed solution to serve their niche, right? And so Vetro makes your network data actionable. It makes it simple to operate and maintain and even optimize all of that connectivity data around the service location, how it can be served, what technologies are available, how you might extend the network to access that location. And so, with that being said, that data is really important for the teams that operate in Camvio, your sales teams, your service teams, your marketing teams, etc. Joe, if we think about Don's relay analogy, what examples or use cases come to mind where you had to hand that baton off manually in the past versus now being able to just empower your teams to get the job done?
Yeah, so it, it really sticks out to me before we got Vetro, when we were early starting on, something as simple as a customer calling in and saying, hey, do you service my address? Say, for example, 111 Smith Street, right? We've got fiber on Smith Street, but Smith Street's a really long road here in Gray, Georgia. It actually goes between two counties. And we know we've got fiber on that road, but not the entire road. So the CSR would have to tell the customer, you may be able to be served by TriCoGo, but I need to take your address. I need to send it to our engineer. Give us a few days and we'll get back with you. And they would take that, they would send an email with the address to our engineer. Our engineer would get that email. When he had time, he would drive out to the address. He'd go to 111 Smith Street. He would look up in the air and say, do I have fiber here? Oh, yep, I've got fiber. So then he would drive back to the office, maybe that day, maybe the next day. He would reply to that email and tell the CSR, yes, we can serve that area. The CSR, in between calls, would then call that customer back, say, yes, ma'am, we can serve that area. Are you ready for service? Hopefully she had not, got service from somebody else in these 3 or 4 days. If she hadn't, we'd place an order and then we could start working to provide service. But with that 3, 4 day delay, she could have went with service with somebody else. She could have just got frustrated with the process and decided, hey, I don't want service. I'll use my cell phone. There was a lot of gaps there that, you know, we stood a chance to miss that customer.
Yeah.
Or let's say we didn't have service at that address. We've wasted all that time and effort to say, no, we couldn't serve you. Once we got Vetro, that was already in the system. The CSR immediately knew when they put in the address 111 Smith Street, it would tell them, boom, yes, it's serviceable, or no, it's not. And they continued that conversation right then with the customer on the phone. There was no reaching out to anybody. There was no delays. And that for us was a game changer. That one thing allowed us to build customers faster, which as an ISP is what you want to do. You want to get revenue as quickly as you can. So that for us was just wonderful right out of the gate.
Yeah, that's a powerful story, Joe. And I've been in your shoes before, so you're making me sweat a little bit over here. If I hope your engineer's inbox doesn't look like my inbox because I know you're leaving money on the table if
Yeah.
that were the case. I do want to talk a bit with you, Don, about how we've enabled this sort of automation to take place within the ecosystem that we built. So with Vetro being able to inform you about your ability to monetize the network. What have you seen customers do to eliminate the bottlenecks, to eliminate the gaps, and to just reduce the total number of steps to say yes or no to someone who wants your service?
So Camvio has a demand aggregation portal in addition to the regular Camvio interface that the CSRs use. So the customer can themselves type in 111 Smith Street. They can call in and a CSR can type it in. When that happens, Camvio real time goes out to VETRO and asks, is this serviceable? Says yes or no. Additional information can flow back from VETRO that's related to that address or the area the address is in. And the CSR, the customer, can be informed essentially in real time. Yes, we have service in your address, and you can complete the new service request real time right then. Or in the case that you don't service it yet, you can put information into VETRO that Camvio can pull over that will say service coming in October of 2026, for example. So you can inform customers of that right then on the phone without having to look anything up.
Yeah, that's perfect. And being able to visualize those customer requests on top of your network data can also be extremely powerful. Don, I want to talk about the idea of the service location and maybe who owns that record and why it's important. So I'll start by saying that within VETRO, the ability to determine what capacity and consumption and connectivity exist, regardless of the technology type, allows you to enrich the service location itself, right? So if that service location naturally inherits a construction status and availability note, something about the types of technologies that are present geographically, then you can do what you just said, Don. But additionally, the service location itself has an address, and and that address might be different from the actual billing address. And so, knowing where the service location is in relation to the network and being able to enrich that location with network data is very, very powerful. And that's why VETRO is a best in breed solution, adds all kind of efficiency when it comes to the operations and monetization of the network. Now, you could take it a step further. What if that location was a bead location or had been secured through RDOF or some other means of funding? Or perhaps it's a utility location or some key anchor institute. All of that sort of context could be managed super simply and efficiently within VETRO and shared with Camvio. And there is a question in the group here about how that works. I really feel like we could spend, a whole hour talking about how we together make address management very, very straightforward. But just briefly, being able to gather that data and do something with it in Camvio, how do y'all think about compliance reporting, understanding if the address is a BSL or comes from a certain funding source?
So all of that data can flow from VETRO into Camvio, and then we can help customers report on it. We can aggregate that data together. Camvio being the system of record for all things subscriber and service levels and all that, we can bring that to bear in addition to all the data about the fiber network that's managed in VETRO together, so that you can look at that data across both of those data sets and write whatever reports you need or investigate or what have you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Don. So when it comes to the automation, I think what we've done is created a sovereignty around the data itself, where you have a system that is the authority on the things that it handles best, and then keeps that data in sync with other systems through the work that we've done together. So when it comes to a legacy system that may allow data to become out of sync or duplicated and you don't know who's responsible for keeping all of that tied together. What sort of operational impacts are you seeing, Joe? Like, for example, you just told me that after this webinar, you got to go figure out what to do about a network that was burned down, right? And so, have you experienced a situation where you've got three or four pieces of data and you don't know which one to trust?
Oh, absolutely. Early on, when we started, and we were just getting all of our information into Vetro. We had our older mapping system. We had our notes on construction prints that we had, and then we had what we had originally put into Vetro, and they didn't always say the same thing, right? I had crossings where over railroad tracks, it told me it was ADSS in one system. The other system told me it was strand and lash, out of the electric space. So I'm sitting here looking, do I need to send a qualified lineman to go work on this because it's in electric space? Or do I need to send, a regular fiber tech that can go out there and work on this? Is it 144 or is it 24 count fiber?
Right.
And there's no way for me to look because I'm looking at three different pieces of data here, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So what I have to do, I either have to write out and look at it, or I have to send a tech out there to look at it to gather the information. That slows down repairs. That's wasteful on money, and it all delays getting the customer back up. And if the customer's unhappy because they're down, what are they going to do? They're going to churn. They're going to go to somebody else when they're not down. So that slows us down. I can happily say now we're completely on the Vetro. That's our one source of truth. Everything that's in Vetro has been verified either by a TriCoGo employee or we hired a contractor to go out and verify everything, piece by piece. This is a 2-port tap. This is a 24 count fiber. It's all in there, and now there's only a handful of people that can make changes in Vetro, and we don't make the change unless we know for sure, and then that information flows to Camvio. And Camvio, we don't make changes in Camvio that affects Vetro. We make the change in Vetro, and it flows to Camvio. That way we can keep a record of what is right, and it has really changed the response time and the accuracy of everything that we do.
Yeah, that's what you get with the best in breed solution. You get the ability to maintain that data very simply, right? As your teams go about their work, they're actually serving to continuously improve the quality of that data. And then we share it across the ecosystem so that way we have the power to be more efficient when it comes to responding to customers. Don, we talked quite a bit about service availability and activation. But I want to highlight, one of the other workflows that's being improved by having Camvio data in Vetro, and that's the sharing of subscriber data, right? So when you're outside working, outside plant, extending network, lighting fiber, you want to know where your current customers are and where your soon to be current customers are. So that way you don't negatively impact their service. And so rather than sharing, serviceability data just to Camvio, Camvio is actually sharing data back to us about whether or not a customer is active or not, which is really powerful for our field teams. If we just think realm of possible, Don, is there other maybe workflows or use cases or data shares that make a lot of sense here?
So one of the things we were talking about recently that we have the ability to do now is one of the steps in our new service request process is drop construction. So somebody has to go out and build a drop to the house. Joe was talking about that a little bit ago. And now if that information is already stored in Vetro that this address has a drop, Camvio can look out in the midst of doing our workflow process and look into Vetro and say, does this address have a drop? Yes, it does. Camvio will programmatically skip that step in the workflow. There's a button in our workflow that if you don't have that automation, somebody can say drop exists. and then the process is skipped. But we can now automate that step, so nobody has to do that busy work of looking in Vetro and clicking it. The system sort of removes a lot of those busy work steps, so people can focus on the harder steps.
I have a great visual for what you just said, Don, so I probably should have hit next slide a little sooner. But for me, what you just described is a very bespoke approach. It's a workflow that the software does not dictate. It's a workflow that you determine to be best for your company.
Mhm.
And together, Vetro and Camvio take full advantage of the automation to allow you to direct that work to the places where it's the most efficient, right? So almost like an e-commerce approach where you get to say there's multiple avenues to activate service. There's multiple ways to help my sales teams determine what to sell where. And
Mhm.
we're not going to prescribe those ways to you. We're just going to make the data very easy to access so that way you can get the work done. Um, that basis that we build through specialization prevents these silos from making other business decisions very simple, right? So as we look at subscriber take rates, revenues, etc., and then you combine that with the network depth that you get from Vetro, all of a sudden you see analytics, AI,
Mhm.
ERP, every area of the business become much more streamlined and efficient from a reporting perspective. Joe, understanding understanding the needs of a company like this, an ISP or a fiber operator, where do you see us taking this next, right? From a automation perspective, where do you see us going forward?
So one of the things that I'm currently working on, knowing that we've got V3 coming and we'll be able to do more and more with the customer's address, is on the marketing and churn side, is we're unique here. We've got 7 different competitors depending on what area we're serving. So we don't market or combat churn the same if we're going against competitor A as we do competitor B, right? Are they a small local competitor or are they a big national, AT&T type competitor? Well, before you just had to know, okay, Smith Street, that's competitor A, and Main Street, that's competitor B. Well, what we've done now inside of Vetro, we've drawn competitive polygons. We know that this area is competitor A and this uh, polygon is competitor B, and we can pull that data. Just one report, we can pull it and know that all these addresses we can send this flyer to because it is against competitor B. Or if somebody calls in and they're in polygon B, then this are the churn things that we're worried about. This is the competitive conversation we want to have with the customer. Hey, they're offering you a really good deal, but they're not giving you fiber. That is only twisted pair DSL, and our CSRs can see that right
Yeah.
there on their screen without having to be Vetro experts and go in and look at that kind of stuff. Camvio will be able to just pull that over and tag that on their account because of all the layers of automation between Vetro and Camvio. So that's going to be a game changer right there for us.
Yeah, it's a competitive landscape that we're dealing with, and you need to be able to be nuanced with how you handle those situations. That requires you trusting the data. So if you're always hunting for the right information to handle a specific customer with a specific need at their location, then you're just not going to be as competitive as you should be. And so I love where your head's at, Joe, with if this is a frequently asked question, a piece of data that my team needs, where do I put that so that way it's easy to maintain? And then just allow the automation and the connectivity between our two systems to share it to the teams that benefit the most from that information. We have talked a lot so far, Joe, about where there are pain points and bottlenecks within a given handoff, right? Whether that be from your engineering outside plant teams or your network activation teams and billing or elsewhere. So I'd like to now ask the audience, do you agree with Joe? Do you agree with us on where the most pain lies, or are there other areas that you feel like could be benefited the most from this automation? Don, as the poll questions come in, this slide articulates well the benefits of not thinking about work products that need to be handed off from one person to the next and allowing Camvio and VETRO to come in and do a discovery around how we might automate some of those handoffs through a better data flow. Is there, of the four bullets on the screen, is there one that really stands out more to you than the others?
Um, well, I think for me, it's less rework and faster revenue. I think that we're taking a lot of opportunity with companies like Joe at TriCoGo to figure out what data do you have in the systems and how can we. It's not to me just about the data flowing. It's about the system helping to make those, like I was talking about earlier, the busy work decisions, so that we can improve the process, make there be less rework, and get people to billable faster.
Yeah, that's it. When I see someone having a 2 or 3 week process to activate a customer, even if that customer already has a drop present, they're at risk. And so the
Mhm.
rework in that situation is discovering what is available. Where is my network? Where am I connected? And what can I do with that connectivity? So being able to share that in the environment where a CSR can just say, yes, you can have service today, is probably one of the more impactful areas. With that being said, I was going to take a look at the poll results. Let me pull that up and we'll just see what we have, if there's any surprises. So 50% of the participants, overwhelming majority there, said that network completion to service activation, billing, and support is where there is sort of a constant bottleneck. That's where that handoff really causes people to slow down a lot. And I'm going to share a personal story on that topic and then maybe get your reaction, Joe and Don, before we conclude. When I talk to a lot of our operators, I find that they will build network and it will be wide reaching. It'll cover an entire market. And then they go through a manual process of quality assurance, quality audit, and lighting the network. When you use VETRO, you have the ability to complete those field tasks and know instantly whether or not the work is done. And so, as a former VETRO customer, I was able to incrementally sell in a market as the network was extended. If a tap or an access point was lit, we could immediately sell there, even if the rest of the street was not yet complete. And the way that we can do that is through sharing the status of the network with a system like Camvio. So that is a handoff that we love to eliminate by working together, by getting our teams to know what the status of the network is within their billing and sales systems. Is there the second, sort of most frequent handoff problem was all of the above. So people just feel like data handoff in general is a large problem. But when it comes to knowing the status of construction or the network up, down, reach, etc., and going into billing or provisioning, is there any other thoughts that you'd like to share given the poll results? Or just in general, it's sort of a last comments opportunity here.
So I would just say, all of these are important, just like Don said. Ultimately, we want faster revenue. As an operator, you know, I don't keep a job if we're not making revenue. But doing this for 25 years, I can say on the operation side, the most important thing is having trusted data. Garbage in is garbage out. And, with us, once we got Vetro, being able to put good data in there and keeping that truth there and not putting it some of it there, some of it here, some of it over there, just having one truth of data there. It was wonderful for us, and trusted data, less manual work, faster activations, and getting that revenue in. I don't feel like we would be as successful if we are had we not partnered with VETRO and Camvio together. Those two systems working hand in hand has allowed us to get to 11,000 customers.
Congratulations on that, Joe. And here at Vetro, we think less about data migration and more about data transformation. We want you to be able to act on that network data, so we make it simple for you to maintain it with high integrity. Don, any parting thoughts, whether it's about the poll question or otherwise?
I'll just build a little bit on what Joe said. I think that moving away from the handoff idea to the data synchronization, you can trust the data not just in Vetro and in Camvio, but you can trust the Vetro data in Camvio and the Camvio data in Vetro because the data is
Okay,
flowing back and forth. So
sure.
you don't have to think, oh, when did they sync the data last? Was it an hour ago? Was it yesterday? So when you look, you can just look at the data and know that the data that you're looking at is correct,
Yeah, and
which gives you more trust in
accurately.
the data and you can react faster.
Perfect. Well, in closing, I would like to offer to all participating today for us to come in and take a look at your processes. Let's identify your bottlenecks. Let's identify your handoffs. And whether you're evaluating, a change to your technology stack or not, we would love to share with you best practices and lessons learned from our collective partners and customer base. This is our contact information today. Feel free to shoot us an email and get that discovery scheduled. And Joe, thank you so much for the real life stories here and bringing some context to this very technical topic. And look forward to chatting with you both more soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
everyone have a great day. Thanks, Don. See you.